Welcome once more to Dragon Ball Dissection December. We're continuing with the opening salvos of Dragon Ball GT and the answer to the all-important question, can I cover more than one episode in a video? Spoilers. You're not getting spoilers this time. I've spoiled you too much already. Here's some context that I think might be useful going forward. In general, I have a predisposition to liking opening bits of a story. The ideas are all flowing, so many things are happening and being established, my imagination is running wild with where these things could possibly go. In new Dragon Ball arcs in particular, I'm pulled in by the novelty of time having passed and characters having aged. What's new in this world? What do I need to catch up on? What character dynamics are at play? That's why, even though the Cell and Boo arcs got low scores from me, I heavily praised their openings. There's nothing cooler than Sword Guy from the future showing up and cutting Frieza in half. That's crazy! When Universe Survival started in Super, I was excited. When Granola started in Super, I was so excited! As some of those examples demonstrate, I've been disappointed before. And since. But yes, I love the opening episodes of Dragon Ball GT. There's so much to talk about, so many new things. New versions of characters, new relationships and interactions, they're easy to love. That's probably why episode 2 of Dragon Ball GT was its highest rated episode, which barely edged out its first episode. After that, the numbers go down. So here's where the ball starts rolling. Thankfully, episode 3 starts off still having to establish new things. Last time, Pan blasted Goku and Trunks into space by reusing a shot from the end credits. Now, Trunks is fighting her over control of the main control key. I'll keep crowing on this for as long as I can. This scene, like so many others, does a fantastic job demonstrating how the three characters work together. Pan is playing keep away because she's a kid on a mission. Trunks is selling every harried vocalization and bizarre facial expression, trying to keep a handle on the situation because he's the responsible one. Goku is chowing down on food because he doesn't give a crap. Each character has a part to play. They're not just the three interchangeable strong people. At any rate, Trunks fakes Pan out by feigning unconsciousness. Then Pan stuffs the key down her shirt, which tables the discussion for the present. The timeline's a little wonky for me though. Immediately following these hijinks, we get a scene of Chi-Chi on Earth talking to herself about how it's been a week since the spaceship left. So there are two possibilities. This scene takes place directly after the preceding one, which means Trunks took no steps to get Pan home until after a week had passed. More likely though is that Chi-Chi's scene takes place a week after the preceding one, which means that Trunks took this problem so seriously that he immediately gave up. I mean, it's hard to imagine Pan never took that key off in 7 whole days. Whatever. It's a cute moment and gives a flimsy but solid enough answer as to why Pan is here to stay. The next time we see the trio, following the Chi-Chi scene, Pan has taken it upon herself to do the mopping. It's really so she can assign chores she doesn't want to do to her companions. It's more of this take-charge personality that aims to position herself as equal to the adults. Trunks even points out that she's referring to him as Trunks rather than the more polite Trunks-san. Not that it matters to him, of course. She rightly points out that if it doesn't matter to him, then why should she? I'm totally on board with Pan smashing pointless politeness hierarchies. And again, it's great character stuff. This is one of those things that demonstrates how Trunks is different from his alternate counterpart. That Trunks politely deferred to almost everybody. When he wasn't that way, you knew something was up. This Trunks bristles at not being given his due respect. And I will forever love seeing this Trunks have to handle someone who is basically him when he was a kid. It's a hilariously uncomfortable gaze in the mirror. This, however, makes me wish we had more scenes set in the spaceship because there are painfully few. Images from the end credit sequence, like this one, always led me to believe we'd be spending more time with them in space, on the way to their next destination, having zany interactions with each other. This spaceship seems more carefully designed than past Dragon Ball spaceships, with more locations and areas to explore, a home base. Sadly, it seems to mostly go to waste. I know I'm probably the only person in the world who wants more Pan and the gang argue over divvying up their household chores, as opposed to Goku finds his 76th new transformation to punch things harder. But darn it, this is my dissection show and I can say whatever I want. Look, I just want some variety, and we can all agree I get far less of the former than the latter. It's the same in Star Trek. I tend to prefer episodes that take place on the ship because the ship is cool. It's home. It has so many fun places to explore that do so many things. I have more of an emotional attachment to it than I do random planet of the week. I'm not saying we shouldn't go to planets. I'm just saying we could do both. Fortunately, it's the charming character interactions that are what I most value, and those can happen on a planet just as easily as they can on a spaceship. So I can't really complain that domestic tensions are suddenly interrupted by more pressing matters. A piece has fallen off the spaceship. Trunks delivers another fantastic facial expression. I cannot overstate how much I love this Trunks. As the leads panic, we cut back to Bluma, who has been researching ever since the spaceship dropped a piece during its launch. She helpfully tells the audience that this piece came from the course change rockets. Appropriate facial expressions run in the family. Well, hope you enjoyed that, because we're not going to be seeing her again for a while, and the next time we do, she's seemingly forgotten all about the likely reality that her son and oldest friend are scattered in pieces across space. Sure enough, this course change rocket is the same part of the ship Pan damaged in the previous episode. The characters seemingly never make this connection, but we'll always know it's your fault. Goku learns about seatbelts from Jurassic Park's Alan Grant just in time for the ship to crash land on a nearby planet. Going to planets is almost inevitably doomed to be a very by-the-numbers affair. A Dragon Ball's on a planet. They go to that planet. Unlike traveling across land, which brings the characters into proximity of all kinds of unexpected, unavoidable things, space is largely space. The destination becomes everything. The journey is, well, it could have been more time to spend having adventures and character development on the spaceship. Ahem. The journey becomes flyover country. Flyover universe. Obviously, whatever's on a planet is going to be a surprise, but without unexpected stops, it could easily render this a journey with no spontaneity. As such, I think it's a gesture of good faith on the part of the writers to make the first planet they stop at a stop they didn't plan to make. It shows they're aware of how point-to-point this could be without imagination. Setting up the machinations in advance makes it feel like a suitable payoff, as opposed to if the brand new ship just happened to immediately break down. And because the ship is damaged, they're trapped in whatever conflict they find. Good stuff. They end up on the planet of Omega. Omega, like in so much of science fiction, is a planet of hats. That is to say, the entire culture is based around a single trait. Omega is a play on gametsui, the Japanese word for greedy. Naturally, Omega's hat is greed. Even their currency is called gamets. The moment Goku, Trunks, and Pan set foot in the marketplace, they are besieged by merchants pushing an endless supply of knickknacks in their faces. They try to take refuge in a hotel only to find that literally every item is charging them for every second of use. Even the use part is out of their control. Trunks is chained to his toll bed, Pan can't turn off the water in her toll shower, Goku's toll refrigerator won't stop dispensing food. Even this random bird statue is charging them for something. I don't know why, but that's always cracked me up, the sheer chutzpah of that. These scenes are so funny that they almost make me overlook that this doesn't actually make any sense at all. Obviously, spacefarers are going to be easy marks, but remember how I mentioned there is a specific local currency on this planet? Aren't we missing a crucial step here? How do the heroes plan to barter for spaceship parts if they don't have any money? What good are Goku, Pan, and Trunks to these people if they don't have any money? How did they get a hotel room? How does Trunks tip the robot bellhop? Oh, he has money? Where did that come from? It's a very inelegant break from reality in that it forces a conflict that makes very little sense, but does a memorable job of establishing what this planet is all about. The gang eventually take refuge from the rain in a poor family's house. In fact, they're so poor that their house is repossessed by robots as they are delivering the planet's exposition. Which is good. I mean, the exposition is good, not the repossessing. Exposition is always more interesting accompanied by stage business, especially business germane to the exposition. The planet is ruled by the greedy Don Kia, who owns everything and charges exorbitant rental rates for it to be used. That's why the merchants are so shady. They're forced to be equally aggressive simply to keep up. Appropriately, Don Kia is an anagram of Akindo, the Japanese word for merchant. It also works out quite well that Don is the title often used for crime bosses. The trio return to their ship the next morning, having made no progress. Goku and Pan are wondering if they're just going to leave these people to suffer, while Trunks argues they have their own quest to work through. It's not as if they're leaving anyway. They can't. They've only returned because plot has to happen. At Trunks mentioning their quest, Pan suggests they at least check the Dragon Radar, even though, as Trunks says, it would be way too convenient if they just happened to land on a planet with a Dragon Ball. We see, all too briefly, that the Dragon Radar has been completely redesigned. It's sleeker, with softer angles and a wider bezel. I've always thought the original button resembles a giant version of the crown on an analog watch. That protrusion is clearly gone in favor of a button that's recessed into the main body. And the body has an opening molded into it for the strap to tie into, rather than it simply being tied around the crown. I just don't know why the production staff bothered, given that this is literally the only time it's seen before it immediately gets another, much bolder redesign. Startled by a random robotic noise, Trunks drops the radar, whereupon it is eaten by said robot. As if that wasn't bad enough, at that exact moment they notice their spaceship being hauled away. Like I said, they had to come back here for plot. And Trunks still has the best faces. Its glaring logistical issues aside, this episode does a great job getting the trio down to a planet, establishing a conflict that needs to be solved, and then greatly ratcheting up the tension for the cliffhanger. In the next episode, after the meddling robot is caught and safely stored in Pan's backpack, the trio attempt to retrieve their ship. Goku has the answer: Shunganido, his teleportation. For maximum comedic value, they have to start at the top of the highest rocky plateau. That way, when it fails, they can fall from a great height and injure themselves. Despite this, rocky start, they feel compelled to try the exact same thing a second time, including the unnecessarily high altitude. They injure themselves again. Trunks reasons that an effect of the Dragon Balls is that Goku can no longer teleport. I have to stop for a second. On the one hand, I've mentioned I'm thrilled with the idea of Goku being limited in this series, in order to give him more of a challenge, to scale things back. I'm just not sure I fully understand this application. Despite the machinations of Shenlong, Goku has not become the same person he was as a kid. He still has his memories, his experiences, his context. His body has simply been transformed into a child's body. It affects his behavior, but it's not a full reset. After all, if he had literally become his past self, he'd most likely have a tail. Teleportation is a technique, a mental skill. He even expresses his surprise given that he sought out the proper key. In other words, he still knows how to do it. He just can't, for some reason. We'll see in a bit he still knows how to perform the Kamehameha without issue. Granted, he had the basics of that down just prior to meeting Pilaf, long before he learned to teleport. And I have to give the wish-granting dragon some leeway. I don't claim to know the inscrutable workings of his magic. Here's the thing. I'm on board with the story implications of Goku not being able to teleport. I only bring it up as a point of comparison because, in the next episode, he transforms into a Super Saiyan. No. I only have so much disbelief to suspend here. If there's anything Goku logically shouldn't have access to, it's transformations. Changes to his body that not only post-date his youth, but that are clearly tied to his physical state. I'd be able to accept the loss of all of his techniques if they were consistent with it. Heck, it might be fun to see Goku, over the course of the series, have to reteach his new body how to do these old moves. This is the coward's way out. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted to go back to basics, but they were afraid to strip Goku of elements that were too popular. We can't do a Dragon Ball without a Super Saiyan by episode 5. He has to have the Kamehameha. That's the Goku move. So in what way are we going back to basics? Well, let's say he can't teleport. Nobody's going to care if he can't teleport. Goku can still fire ki blasts, fly, and turn into a super-powered version of himself. The idea that taking away his ability to teleport is somehow limiting him is ludicrous. It's lip service, and it shows Dragon Ball GT already lacks confidence in its own premise. These are bad tidings. Because of that, they have to follow the tire treads to Don Kia's palace on foot. Unbeknownst to them, Don Kia has declared the ship to be of no value and orders it scrapped. That night, the trio sneak into the palace. A stealth section in Dragon Ball. Okay, GT, you pulled me back off the ledge, you crazy kid. Goku wants to go in guns blazing, but Pan reasons they don't want all that attention coming down on them. Although it's not said, the couple from the last episode worried a rebellion would get the police to crack down on everyone. And I almost don't care if it doesn't make sense, I just want problems where firing a blast at it isn't the way to solve it. This is all charming, from the jazzy stealth version of the ending theme to Pan and Trunks discussing the economic logic of this society while Goku tries in vain to alert them to the fact that he's found the ship. There are good comedic beats like Pan almost crying when a random can beans her on the head. Trunks stops her, but is then pelted by a falling rock himself, which gets the meddling robot to start making noises. At that point, it becomes full caper with action and fighting. As Pan tells Goku, who's confused that fighting is suddenly okay, they need to take things case by case. Goku misunderstanding that as cake banana cake is a bit of a stretch, even for him, but I've remembered that line for over 20 years, so I guess it does the job. Pan commandeers a vehicle to transport the ship for wacky driving antics. Goku saves them from the minions by firing his Save the Day Kamehameha. That's a Kamehameha unique to GT that Goku pulls out whenever they can't think of another way to instantly solve a conflict. Whatever the day, it is saved. It has a surprising amount of utility. So, despite what I said, they solve the problem by firing a blast at it. After that rousing stealth/action scene, they have their ship back. They've hidden it in the desert. It was damaged in the escape, so now they have to go into the marketplace to find new parts. And after they do, they end up on the run in the rain. Okay, somebody smack the turntable because I think my record is skipping. The conflict basically just started over. Trunks assures the group that their ship is safely hidden here. Where? In the desert? Where it was easily snatched before? What's different about this place? Pan expresses relief that all they have to do is find new parts. What? Why is that something to be relieved by? You only had to replace one part before and you couldn't even do that. Before, they couldn't buy their part because... other things? And maybe they didn't have money, but they also did? At any rate, that hasn't changed. Now, they still can't buy the part because nobody wants to deal with them because they're wanted due to their raid on the palace. I feel like restructuring this whole thing could have solved the money problem. Maybe have them arrive at the planet and realize they need money. Replace all these repeated scenes with them attempting to earn money with some wacky scheme. Rolling in dough, they try to relax at the hotel only to find they're being fleeced. Their success raises the ire of Don Kia, and now they're wanted and can't buy anything. Spend time establishing a logical conflict rather than putting them in the desert 3 separate times. At any rate, their wanted posters are cute, especially Goku's reaction to his. I tend to wonder if Trunks is a reference to Go Go Aquaman, one of Toriyama's one-shots. I've always thought he looks like Trunks with eyeliner. It's probably a coincidence, but then again the animated series has the Elder Kaioshin reading Aquaman in the Boo arc. Bam! Seamlessly working in those loose bits of trivia I didn't have time to talk about over the summer. The police arrive, and Pawn argues they can't attack the police. I don't know, I'm pretty sure you can. I'm all about finding new solutions, but I feel the jig is up at this point. Goku's attacked police before, seemingly far less corrupt than these guys. And as far as running from the police goes, this doesn't hold a candle to Great Saiyaman's escapades. They just turn a corner. Riveting. Now on the run, in the rain, the meddling robot makes a noise, which Trunks somehow correctly interprets to mean the cops are on their tail. They manage to hide just in time for the cliffhanger, because that's suddenly a big deal now when it wasn't 2 minutes ago when they effortlessly ran away. Let me tell you a brief story. In mid-2000, not a lot of the Dragon Ball franchise was officially available in the States. When my early internet searches led me to find out there was so much more Dragon Ball than I'd ever known, I siphoned it up. Figuring out how to get fan subs on tape was the most amazing thing in the world. As part of my second purchase, I decided to include the first GT tape, the first 4 episodes, to see what that was about. I was having a good time. Then I got to episode 4. I never bought another GT tape after that. It's not that I hated it or anything. This episode is not awful. I love the Palace Raid if nothing else. But the teleportation inconsistency and the repetition were enough to indicate that my money was better spent on the other 2 series. So that's it for this week. Next time, though, it's the movie so removed from the plot of GT, my audience was understandably confused as to when it came out. Well, hopefully you'll never forget after this. This year, the Christmas slot goes to the 10th anniversary Dragon Ball movie, The Path to Ultimate Strength. I thought GT was going back to basics? I don't know basics, this is basics. The old gang, the original gang, get pulled out of mothballs for one more attempt at adapting the very first Dragon Ball storyline. How does it do? See it right now as a $10 and up patron. If not, we'll see each other again on Christmas Day. Hope you enjoy it!